This is a baseball, and it has 108 stitches in it. This ball is used to be played in a game that is known as America's pastime. Whether you care much for baseball or not, there was once a time in your life where you at least tried it out. Everyone knows what baseball is because it's probably a part of your life in some way. Major League Baseball is very beloved throughout the nation and throughout the world, and many people love the game. Today, I'm going to talk about Major League Baseball, and I'll first tell you about the origin of baseball, how it started, and who started it, also telling you about the first game that was played. Second, I will talk about some of the famous players who paved the way for how the game is played today. Finally, I will talk about the game today and how it has changed from 100 years ago. Now this brings us to our first topic. Major League Baseball. It was started in 1839 in New York by a young man named Abner Doubleday. I gained this information on the origin of baseball from history staff on History.com. In 1845, the first team was founded by a group of men who also founded a couple new rules along with it. Rules were not big, so no need to really go over them. The team was known as the New York Knickerbockers. In 1846, the first official game was played between the Knickerbockers and a cricket team, which launched the beginning of the sport being competitive. The sport was also played in the Civil War because it tended to boost the morale of the soldiers at the time. Now this brings me to my second topic. I want to talk about the two very important players that I think in baseball history who paved the way for how the game is played today. I obtained this information from sportingnews.com on an article written by Graham Womack. The first player, and probably the best ever, is Babe Ruth. He was the cornerstone of baseball in the early 1900s, and he still is today. When you think of baseball, you think of him, because he has and always will be the face of baseball. Everyone loved him back then, and everyone still loves him today. He has changed the game a lot because he was known as a big home run hitter, which back then not many people hit home runs as much as they do nowadays. And his record was not broken till way later after his career ended. The second player I would like to talk about is Jackie Robinson. Everyone knows who Jackie Robinson is. Jackie Robinson was the first African American to play in the Major League Baseball. He is known as the one who broke down the color barrier and paved the way for more African Americans to play the game later. To show how important he was in the MLB has an official Jackie Robinson Day to honor him every year. This is where everyone wears his jersey because of how special he was to everyone. Finally, on to my last topic. Baseball is definitely different today than it was over 100 years ago, but it still is the same concept and mostly the same rules. Some have been changed. I would like to go through the things that have changed in today's game most. I obtained this information from an article on BleacherReport.com. One of the biggest changes in today's game is that it is year-round now than it was back then. So back then, players did not just play baseball. They would either have other jobs, they'd do other things because, back then they didn't focus on baseball as that's your life, that's what you're going to do. Not many did. Only ones that really come to mind are the ones like Babe Ruth who actually did. Now possibly the biggest change is that players are a lot bigger and stronger nowadays than when they were back then. For the players to be stronger, it means a whole different game than it was over 100 years ago. You see players now, and just people now, are a lot bigger than they were back then, and it changes the game in many ways. Like I said, Major League Baseball is very beloved and always will be. Throughout my speech, I went over three main topics that helped me explain the game a little more, which were how it started and who started it, the famous players that paved the way for many others, and how the game has changed. My final thought would be that baseball is truly inspiring and interesting. The fact that it is this old and is still being played today, and mainly the same exact game today as it was back then, is very interesting. Because, a lot of things change over time, but baseball really hasn't. And this truly shows you how it is America's pastime. Thank you.